hope you can hear me. And thank you for this opportunity to share in this timely and I think very important initiative. And my thanks to those who've put in such huge efforts on both sides of the Atlantic to make this possible. Today, the world we live in is created by the stories that we tell, by our realities, our memories, and our dreams. If a dream is monochrome, it can be brilliant. But if our dreams are always monochrome, then they'll be lost in the kaleidoscope of the world that we never discover. And those who do not know, those we can never befriend. And that's far truer amongst our immediate neighbours than ever about lands untravelled. We're all travellers in our way, and all come from somewhere. But all of us as well come from many places. In the history of humankind, from the ages of different oceans and islands and continents, millenniums back, never stands still. We can see that this week. Nature changing the landscape, indeed the land itself of the Tongan archipelago. Such explosions of nature create destruction and misery, but eventually out of which will come opportunity and change. And to survive, people adapt. The planet is always one of people on the move, and it varies in shape and form and from one time to another. So we see today huge movements of people across continents. Where children once lived near neighbours and parents near grandparents, now people scatter. Prosperity is one such driver. Where there's conflict, people flee. Where there's poverty and starvation, people seek to move. In China, an extraordinary shift in just 3 decades, from the majority of the population living in the countryside to the majority in cities, which encapsulates a visible societal change that's happening globally and in our lifetimes. The late Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sacks once very wisely said, when you have friends, you discover the people like us are people like us. When that happens, conversation can begin. And who are the other? Well, religion. We take the tiny little city of Old Jerusalem. You can go down the Via Dolorosa, tiny little street, onto the Catholic hospice, climb on the roof and look out over the old city of Jerusalem. And you see immediately before you the most holy place in Judaism, perhaps the most holy place in Christianity, one of the most holy places in Islam, literally next to each other. You could throw a tennis ball, kick a football from one to the other. And even within them, within the individual religions, conflict over ownership of bits of land, conflict of who can pray where, conflict who manages which side, conflict between the religions. A wealth in the last 2 years, the COVID era, the very richest in the world have become incredibly richer. Unprecedented increases in wealth amongst a handful of people, while the planet itself suffers with trying to survive this new plague an epidemic. The other of colour, the other of gender. And those countries that keep hate crime statistics see that there's been increases in hate crimes related to colour, to race, to gender. And that is across the board in the Western world. The other of difference. In fact, any difference. And the question, I think, for all of us is, it was once posed by the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. He said, we all have some discrimination, some prejudice within us. The question is, are we personally prepared to challenge that prejudice? Because we all tend to build our own fortresses around us. And these days, we even allow empires to be built around us with no bloodshed, commoditizing us. We're all customers these days. We all have data, and there are people desperate to grab and profit from that data. And by the second, ever more so, we're ceding this ground to those large corporations, bigger than countries, as well as bigger than people. Well, do we really all want to eat the same food, watch the same TV screens, read the same books, hand over the same data? Well, sometimes that shared experience can bring us together. But is it what we want at all times and in all ways? Or would we also want just as much, and I would say even more so, to celebrate our differences, our uniqueness, the things that make us more interesting to one another? A world where we just talk to people like ourselves, move amongst people just like ourselves, have friends just among people who look and feel and have the experiences the same as us, is a pretty boring existence. And those religious nonconformists from Bassetlaw, those centuries ago, ostracized and excluded, who therefore fled in a rickety boat across the oceans, are there not parallels literally today? And those who land assets are grabbed from them and around their homes in the name of progress and civilization, are there not parallels today? You know, next week's Holocaust Memorial Day, next Wednesday, 27th of January. Elie Wiesel was a survivor of the Holocaust, one of the minority who survived. And Elie Wiesel said, we must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Many civilizations over the centuries have been decimated by disease, by war, by land grabs. Though that one in the Holocaust had a particular evil uniqueness in that it was calculated, it was premeditated, it was ideological to exterminate the entire Jewish people. And when that happened, indifference was the norm. The peoples of the world can only survive on this planet if we can embrace and celebrate, enjoy our differences. We always have a choice. That's why I embrace this bold initiative today. The Wampanoag Nation, the Mayflower Pilgrims, and the church today. What better conversation amongst friends can there be? And therefore, thank you everyone for giving of your time and your efforts today. Let's have that conversation.